Hey guys, today I want to talk about call centers. United States call centers versus Philippine call centers are totally different. And then you got Indian call centers, Pakistani call centers, and I'm sure there's some other countries that do this also. But I want to talk about this a little bit because it's quite an interesting subject once you start delving into it. Because I've asked a lot of call center employees over here what they think of Americans, when they converse with Americans. Now, keep in mind that each call center is different. Some are for complaints, customer complaints. Other ones are for taking orders, and you're going to get different types of people calling in for somebody that has to take orders or what have you versus somebody that takes complaints or has to try to fix things, like a Western Union or it could be a credit union. It could be a AT&T or any of those companies. Any of those companies, it's going to be different. It's different if you're calling in to complain versus ordering something. But one of the things that I got off the call center employees over here, from the ones I've spoken with, is that Americans love to complain. And when they complain, they go full force on these people that they're talking to on the phone. And we've all been there. We've all done that. Everybody has had to, had a really bad experience with a call center person or what have you. I've had it umpteen times. I've had it this past few days. And I wanted to talk about this because it's kind of interesting. And I'm going to tell you an experience I had over the past, about six weeks now. I've been dealing with a credit union based out of Virginia. It's actually a credit union for expats. It's actually supposed to be a pretty good credit union. And I'm not going to mention their name or anything. I'm just going to get into this a little bit because it's actually a pretty good credit union once you become a member. Well, I've been trying to become a member. I've sent them all the stuff that they asked for. I've sent them for the social security card, the passport, the proof that where I live over here, and and a lease agreement, and my proof of address and all that stuff. All of it's all been sent. Not only has it been sent, it's been sent about 3 or 4 times at least. And then they kept asking me for it. They kept sending me out these emails over and over. After I'd send something in, they'd say, please send all these things in and we'll start serving. And it's like they never received it. I'd send it in again. Same thing would happen. I started calling them, and the help on the line was atrocious. And they were Americans. And while I was talking to them, I asked them, I says, do you guys always get calls about this stuff, about, trying to become a member here? Because I says, I've sent other people, they've gotten complaints too. And the lady says, yes, sir, we get it all day long. We've talked to the people higher up during meetings and stuff like that, and they don't do anything. They really just don't care. And I says, well, that's atrocious. I says, because I've been trying to become a member now for 6 weeks. And she goes, yes, sir. And she goes, well, let me try to send you to this other person. She sends me to this other person. She says, we're not supposed to send calls over there. She goes, they tell us not to. But this here call where you've, been waiting for so long, I'm going to try to help you. And she goes, we'll send you over to this guy and talk to him. I get the guy on the line. The guy asks me, what's the problem? And I start telling him the whole problem. And, I was a little bit perturbed about it and a little angry. But I was trying to hold back on that a little bit, and the guy says, "Okay, we'll be in touch with you." And I says, "Well, when?" I started asking him, right, and I started asking him, when am I going to be a member? When am I going to hear? All of a sudden, I hear click, and it goes to a survey, okay, about how your call was, and just what I needed was to have this happen to me next, was that the survey was like a joke. It would tell you to rate them between 1 and 5 or 1 and 10 on their service. And it says, just answer it, don't type it in. So I would answer it. It says, we cannot understand what you said. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is ridiculous. So at the end of the survey, which I really never got totally to the end, but the end as far as I could go anywhere, it was like awful. It was like it just hung up on me. Every time I've called this place, the survey thing doesn't work. And I told them about that, and the lady started laughing. And I says, I don't think it's funny. I says, you guys need a good survey. I says, to rate your atrocious service here at this place. I says, I'm calling you every night on my time, wasting an hour calling you, calling back sometimes because people hang up on me. I get lost when you put me on hold or something like that. It shuts me off after a while. I says, it's awful. And then I started thinking about it. I says, how was my service there when I was there in the States? You know, when I was face to face with people and stuff. And I look back when I was trying to return goods, and I remember snitty remarks, atrocious behavior. I think that's become part of the U.S. now. It's kind of ingrained in everybody's blood back home. It really is. Not everybody, but a lot of people. You know, it's partially, I think when people go in there, they're mad too, and they probably dump on these people, and they're just employees, and we need to take that into consideration too, that we're just talking to employees. But some of these employees make it worse by being snitty and being really atrocious towards customers. And that's back home in the U.S. Now, let's fast forward, and we'll talk about when I reach somebody in the Philippines. Usually, and I can tell when I'm talking to a Filipino or I'm talking to somebody in a call center over here or in India or Pakistan. You can usually tell a little bit. And I always ask, I says, are you in the Philippines? And sometimes they say, yes, sir. I'll say, are you in Dasmariñas? Oh, sir, you know the Philippines, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I live in the Philippines too. Well, anyway, whenever I start up that conversation, whatever I need to get done usually gets done. But I notice when I don't say that I live in the Philippines is when I usually start to have a problem. And these people have told me, from people that I've talked to that work in these call centers, that Americans kind of suck. You know, I had one girl tell me that she was crying from one of the phone calls because the person was so atrocious, and she was afraid if she hung up that maybe her employer would find out, you know, that she hung up on the guy, so she didn't hang up. And I've also heard from other people that they've made people cry before and been atrocious, you know, acting, you know, you have to remember the person on the other line it's not their fault. The person on the other end of the line is an employee, and they're trying to help you. And you're going to get further using honey, you know, than hot sauce. You know, you really are. You're gonna get a lot further using honey than hot sauce. You know, coming down on somebody and yelling. That's the way I put it anyway. I know there's another way to put it, but I forget how it goes. But anyway, when you come down on somebody, an employee, and because of the company that they're working for, or whatever, most call centers work for multiple employees, you know, and they get paid like from different companies. They answer the phones sometimes for 5 different companies. A screen pops up on their computer, and they take the call, and that screen tells them what to do and what to say and how to take care of things. So a lot of times, it's all they can do, whatever they can do for you. But we tend to come down on these people because we think that they can do more, and in most cases they can't. Here's an example, and this was a Philippine call center that I was working with. I called this reward place for a hotel, major hotel, Wyndham Rewards, and I had a Wyndham Rewards card, and I noticed that I had 3 nights up in Manila at one of the Wyndham facilities up there, and they didn't credit me with those 3 nights. Well, I called them. They said, we'll call up that hotel, sir, and we'll verify it, and we'll give you the points. I said, oh, great, thank you. She gets back to me. She goes, sir, they have no recollection of you ever being there. I says, ma'am, I stayed there. I says, I got a receipt right here. All they have to do is look through their receipt book. She goes, no, sir, they have no recollection. I says, I have the receipt. You know, I says, I have the receipt. It's also on my credit card. What more do you need? You know, and the lady, no, sir, we have no recollection of you being there. There's no record or anything of you. I says, there is. If they look in their receipt book, I says, I'll give you the number. She goes, no, sir. I says, did you hear what I said? You know, this is the way things work sometimes. People just, it's very frustrating when you get customer service that will not work with you, or, you know, and that happened to be a Filipino customer service. Now, most of the time when I work with Filipinos, I get better service, way better service than I do with customer service in the United States. customer service in the United States is right down the toilet, and over here it's a little bit better, but it's not great. I'll say this is that customer service, for the most part nowadays, no matter where you are, kind of sucks. And I'm finding that I hate to call a place to complain now when I have something wrong, because you're only going to get more aggravated. And I'm finding that when a company doesn't want to work with me, or doesn't want to return calls to me, or they don't want to, like the application I sent in for joining that credit union I was telling you about, you don't want me, I'm not going to join. I'll find someplace else. I just wanted to have another bank account, a secondary bank account for emergencies. And I was really disgusted by the way I was treated by that organization. Now, I notice about 50% of the time, most of my stuff gets taken care of, or 50 to 60% of the time I get stuff taken care of if it's a Filipino that answers, and I let them know that I'm in the Philippines. Maybe it's because I tell them I'm in the Philippines, that they're happy to have somebody that they can talk to. And usually we have a friendly conversation going on. That also helps getting your needs done. Not always, sometimes it does. But I really hate it when I call back to the States and you call back to some organization back there. It could be you're dealing with whoever, the IRS, Social Security. Social Security, I've called numerous times asking them questions and stuff. Very snippy, don't want to talk to you, give you numbers where they don't answer, things like that. It's a common occurrence. I notice in the United States, they have these lines to call, but they're most of the time they're totally useless to call. And it's getting to be like that more and more in government offices also back in the United States. At least that's what I'm finding when I call places back home, especially dealing with Social Security to ask questions or anything. And I've called a couple places asking questions for one of the expats over here, who's an older guy that sent me a letter. Well, sent me an email, I should say. And he asked me if I could help him. I was going to call to ask the question. And getting the question answered is damn near impossible. So I just said, I give up. How much can you do? And I find that rather sickening that they leave people kind of in a bad spot. And a lot of people out there that run these call centers and these customer service centers, and I'm not talking just the Philippines, I'm talking all of them in general. They hire these people, but they don't give them enough power to do anything in these companies, really. If you ask some of these people about refunds and stuff like that, like getting refunds, that's another thing that's almost impossible nowadays, is getting refunds unless you're going through Amazon or whatever. And it's kind of sad that America has taken that tact. It's not just the United States, though. It's a lot of places all over the world. Customer service is something that people don't really care about nowadays. Not like they used to back in the old days. That's sad. But also, guys, we have to remember when we're talking to these people to always kind of stay calm. That kind of helps you a little bit more. I notice when I take a deep breath before I get on my phone call and I try to talk to them, and I don't talk nasty to them even if I don't take the deep breath. But if I take a deep breath and I kind of relax myself before I get on the phone call and say, I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to raise my voice. Sometimes, maybe 60, 70% of the time, they'll fix the problem. But if you let them know in the least little bit that you're upset, they don't want to talk to you. They don't even want to bother you. They don't even want to bother with you. They don't even want to be near you. They don't want nothing to do with that phone call. And sometimes they'll even drop the phone call. And that happens to me quite a lot. I notice when I'm calling certain companies or what have you. Because there's a few places I have to call quite a lot. One of them is when you're doing banking or something like that, or Social Security is a little bit like that. When you're trying to get answers, it's like pulling teeth from them. They're very vague in their answers, or they won't give you answers at all, which really kind of sucks and hurts. because we as retirees, a lot of retirees count on Social Security. So when they need help, they need help. And for you to call, let's say from the Philippines back home, some people have to spend a lot of money if they're using their phone and they're not using like a Magic app or Magic Jack or some other thing that they can call the United States for free. It's really sad because they don't even take that into consideration, and I just want to put all this out there today because this is part of living in the Philippines. This is the part of living that a lot of us don't like over here, is that when we call back home, I spend a good chunk of my nights on the phone, on hold, waiting for crappy service. Sad but true, Anyway, guys, just something I want to talk about. I want to compare the two services, and I do get better service from the Philippine call centers, and actually from the Indian call centers too in some cases. Pakistani, not so much. They don't really help you that much. I've had bad luck with them. But the American customer service call center reps are atrocious, and even the ones that are actually working for the companies themselves, sometimes when I call places back there to try to get some help, they don't even want to talk to you. And in fact, most of the time they'll put you on hold and they'll never pick it up again. I've been on hold for 45 minutes one time. The lady said, "I'll be back in a minute." They just stick you on hold. And then I called back 4 or 5 nights later. Same thing, 45 minutes on hold. I hang up after 45 minutes. I'm not going to stay there all night long. And then what do you do after that? There's not much you can do, because you get that atrocious, terrible service. But anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm sure a lot of you have gone through what I've gone through, and it's just part of life now, not just for expats, but for everybody throughout the world. God bless, guys. Take care.